being able to love your consumer with empathy and being able to have quiet time and, a bit of mindfulness, it's amazing the ideas that will come to you. So have your data, but understand your superpower is in your intuition. And you should not be afraid to say, my gut says.
Let's give a warm welcome, Michelle. You can.
Hello. Good morning, Matthew.
Excellent. Pleasure to be speaking with you again. Really enjoyed some chats we've had leading up to this. So why don't you, kick things off with a little bit about your background and what's led to the current role that you have at Samsung.
Excellent. Well, apologies up front for this very thick Scottish accent on a Friday morning. There are no subtitles in Zoom, unfortunately, at this point. So let me go at it and let me try not go too fast. I started my marketing career many years ago when I was 21 in Procter & Gamble. I started initially in the IT function and I moved very swiftly into our Oil of Olay brand. And I was based in our European office. And that was really important. That's really important. Why I tell you that is that when you work across multiple markets, it's a true test of your marketing insights, being able to understand a Spanish consumer from a German consumer. So my P&G days, I guess it was there 16 years, Matthew. It was a long time. I worked in global roles, headquarter roles like European headquarters and local marketing. I developed advertising. I developed go-to-market strategy. I worked in sales teams. I basically did it all. And after 16 years, it really felt like a natural time for me to continue my career. Being very hungry and ambitious, it was natural for me. So I then moved to a private equity-backed brand, and I became chief marketing officer there, and that was for Vertu, which is luxury handsets. I worked there, and then I moved over to Samsung. And here's what's interesting. When I was being interviewed for my role in Samsung, the CEO at the time was asking me about a case study about 4K TVs at the time. And I remember giving him the strategy and how it would translate right down to the people and how to enable them. And he's like, oh, this is more than marketing. He's like, no, you got to do a different job. And he created a job for me there and then on the spot. We co-created the title, Strategy and Transformation. And for 3 years, I ran corporate strategy and transformation in Samsung Europe. Then I also did it in the US. And then after some time, I then became the chief marketing and communications officer for Samsung Electronics America. So it's been quite a journey. I've lived in many countries, worked in many brands. And I'd say actually my greatest joy right now is sitting here in the US with such a mega brand. For those, Matthew, not everyone knows where Samsung came from, how it started. I didn't know until I started my interview process, if I'd be completely honest. And I remember my boss at the time saying, you have no clue how complex our business is. And I'm thinking, work for P&G. And now at the time, I think it was around about $80 billion worth of revenue, give or take. Oh, a pretty complex business. And Samsung, give or take on the day you're reporting, is around about $300 billion in revenue. 300, right? And it's the fifth largest brand, if you look at Interbrand. And so it started out in 1969 making black and white TV, Samsung Electronics America. But now, if you fast forward, we're one of the most globally recognized brands. In the US alone, I think it's like over 72% of households own a Samsung product. Everyone loves their Samsung TVs. I think everyone loves the Samsung TV. Every time I tell someone I work for Samsung, I'm like, when do you have your next TV coming out? When's your next mobile phone? It's fabulous.
I'm looking at mine in the distance right in front of me in the room. So yes.
Yeah, because we have such amazing innovation. I keep buying TVs. It's got to a point where I don't have enough walls. But anyway, and then 1 in 4 households own 3 or 4 more products of Samsung. That's pretty cool, right? So it's got to the point where I'm working on a brand that is growing significantly and that has a real mission of helping consumers defy barriers to their progress, well, however they define progress, right? And so for me, that's my journey, how I got here. And a little secret, I love what I do. I really enjoy what I do because it's a great brand with a great mission.
Well, you've it's presented a lot there to actually unpack, and I think we will get deeper into each of those, a few of the things. One of them I think that you mentioned at the beginning was, right, this role in Europe and understanding different cultures. And I think it gets to this issue a lot with sort of organizations, the role of marketing, the breaking down of silos in their quest in, right, for brands to be, companies, brands to be truly customer centric. So, you know, talk a little bit about how you've developed your marketing organization, you know, bridging, you know, the silos, bridging the purpose of Samsung. Dive us a little deeper into that. And your personal feelings about the topic, as well as, of course, examples.
Yeah, I have some personal feelings about that too. It's a great question, right? So remember, I started in corporate strategy and transformation. So naturally, I worked across the total business. My mission was really to step change growth, actually, and double our revenue in the space of 5 years. That was the mission. And so I naturally had to work with all lines of business. I had to get everyone attacking the same mission, creating action plans where, you know, we could work together and really penetrate the challenges that we're facing, and making sure that basically we're PMOing it and making sure it happens. But that was corporate strategy and transformation. But back in the marketing world, so I'm responsible for corporate marketing. I'm responsible for campaigns like sustainability. You know, that's a total brand. I'm responsible for customization. That's a total brand. And really, you know, my whole organization, our deal is that who do we serve, right? And we're very clear that we serve our consumers, but we also serve our lines of business as well. And the most positive way to look at it, right? They're our customer. And we're the organization that's able to ladder up everything that's happening across a huge business into a very meaningful message for a consumer, because a consumer finds it really hard to understand what's going on in TVs, air conditioning units, the smartphones, to refrigerators. We make it easy to understand. But I do have a personal feeling about silos, right? Actually, silos used to be a dirty word for me a long time. You know, Matthew, everyone's against a silo. But actually, I've seen that organization design should be purposeful on the mission at hand. I've seen where silos actually, in some cases, really work effectively. It's a great way to accelerate fast revenue growth. And I'm talking from a strategist viewpoint here. Really, really effective as an org design. But when you're a mega brand like us, the power is in the brand and connecting consumer insights across all of your parts of the business. Like, so for instance, if someone's buying a TV, a Samsung TV, and they haven't bought a Samsung mobile phone, maybe in the last 2 years, we have insights into how they feel about the Samsung brand. We can tap into that so that we can create personalized messaging that's relevant for them. That is the power of working across silos, really.
Right. And that's the silos. And I think you're talking, you know, in some ways, right, the agile, the fast growth you're mentioning, it reminds me of, we actually helped produce Professor Brand Schmidt, who'll be coming up in moderating. Shelley worked on a case on what here in the States was called the two-view camera. And people probably don't know this, but Samsung created the very first selfie image. It wasn't on a phone yet. That came very soon afterwards, but in this small hand camera back in, I think 2009 it was. So we did a case on that. That's an example, right, of where you're talking about that agile. The silo helps when you can have some domain authority outside of the big organization, right?
Yeah. And you know, by the way, it was I mean, I wasn't working with Samsung at the time, but it was my innovation team that I used to run in the West Coast that developed that.
Right.
So,
yeah. The pit, as it's called, right, internally. Yeah, exactly.
And they do an amazing job because they're all about the consumer pain points, but also their dreams and what they're trying to achieve. So they're able to tap into fears and vision. Oh, they're amazing group, actually. Amazing pit.
Yeah. Just that recognition of like, the selfies are popular, but you can't see yourself. And right, boom, all of a sudden, innovation. Yep. Great. Sliding, I think, a little more into, you know, marketing itself is going through this sort of innovation challenge about data-driven marketing, and of course, the historic intuition, creativity of marketing. People view them as like one or the other. A lot of our dialogue in society is very hyperbolic. It's this or that. Of course, I'm guessing you, like me, believe it's a blend of the two. Talk through, you know, your insights on that, how you're trying to execute that at Samsung.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I grew up in P&G, you know, that was my basic brand school, and we're so data centric there because consumer is boss and it's all about the data. Now in Samsung, which is taking it to the next level, in all honesty, Matthew, when it comes to data, I even actually have a big data team and a data scientist that work in my organization. They're just able to translate data in different ways. But the key thing is, like, there's traditional research that taps into data. And what, you know, all ladders up to is, are you connected with your consumer? Like, do you genuinely understand how they feel? And can you predict the challenges they will face in the next couple of years? And how can we solve for that? And I think as marketeers, and by the way, I'll say this to everyone who's watching this right now, you will be taught that you need to have a consumer insight. You'll need to have a benefit and an RTB so that you can sell a product, a brand new, you know, value proposition. And I would argue it can't just be consumer insight. You need to think about all the other stakeholders that actually make a product successful in market. So consumers, let's think about this. So consumers, you do your classic focus groups and your interviews. You can go to your stores, like we go to 837, our playground that we have in the meatpacking district. It's a showroom we opened in 2016, and we talk to consumers and we talk to sales reps. That's pretty traditional stuff, I guess, but sometimes people forget that, right? Just actually talking to people. And then you've got AI. By the way, AI is super cool. We're doing AI focus groups now, and it's able to really condense the time it takes for us to get to market, because instantly we're having the insights coming from the consumers, telling us what they like, being able to segment that and be able to give us insights so that we can quickly finalize concepts. But here's the point that I want everyone to know. Like, if you work in marketing, you can't only think about the consumer. You have to think about your other stakeholders. In my case, I have two other stakeholders. I have media and journalists. So I have communications. I also have internal comms, and a lot of the marketeers sitting here today, your roles will evolve, that you'll have bigger roles, not just consumer. So I have consumer, media, and internal employees. And my internal employees are consumers, by the way. They are the inside out authentic consumer. And so when you're creating your concepts and doing your research, think about what will trigger media to write about you, on what will trigger your employees to be proud to be a part of your company. We talk about Samsung pride, talk about inside out. We talk about having our own employees in our own campaigns, Matthew. You know, yeah, we can get polished models, you know, we can, you know, when we're talking about saving underserved communities, we're talking about sustainability. These are passion points for our employees, and they actively want to be in our campaigns. So yeah, data is really, really critical for your stakeholders. But let's talk about intuition. So intuition, I think, is a superpower of all marketeers. And if you're sitting there today and you're like, oh, I can't really tap into my intuition, I'll give you some tips on how you can do it. But you got to be data centric first, Matthew. That's how it all comes together, because you kind of need to understand your industry, you got to understand your consumer, but you need to have quiet time, and you got to read the room, read your people, read your consumers, and feel what they're feeling. And you got to put yourself in their shoes. I remember writing one of my first concepts in Oil of Olay, and it was really hard for me. At the time, it was a point of entry brand at the time, skincare. And the consumer target was 20 years older than me at that point in time. And actually, I couldn't put myself in the shoes, but I figured out, who did I love that was like the consumer I was targeting? And it was my sister-in-law. It was my sister-in-law. And I thought about my poor sister-in-law, how she had our kids at the time. She was running around a supermarket. The kids are in the trolley. She's trying to figure out her budget. She really wants moisturizer. Can she afford it? Or the kids are playing, they're fighting. And instantly it was unlocked for me. So I'm being able to love your consumer with empathy, and being able to have quiet time and, you know, a bit of mindfulness. It's amazing the ideas that will come to you. So have your data, but understand your superpower is in your intuition. And you should not be afraid to say, my gut says, my intuition is telling me. And I remember this picking packaging. Oh, that's another time, way back in Europe. And I remember we're trying to decide between a white packaging with a gold burst or gold packaging with a white burst. I know it doesn't sound like, you know, but it really meant it was either more younger, older, vibrant, you know, more classic. I remember my boss saying to me at the time, because I was known for my intuition, what does your gut say? Because only so much data will tell you. At some point, you got to take a risk in your gut. So everyone listening, that is something that is your superpower, and really tap into it early if you can.
Yeah, all sorts of great points there, Michelle. Your multi-stakeholder thing, I mean, that's at the core, right? We view brand. Brand is built by really every part of an organization, because it's anything that affects that relationship with a stakeholder, just as you said.
Yeah.
I give, for example, when I do sort of brand basic kind of talks, I use actually an old one, Snapple, because it is a real valuation one where it was bought by Quaker, and Quaker kind of changed a whole bunch of things at the brand, including its relationship with the distributors, who had become like essentially free salesmen for Snapple, telling every bodega, you need to carry the latest thing. They've got a new flavor. And as they changed that relationship, you know, sales went down, they weren't as successful, and they sold the company for a third of what they bought it for just a couple of years later. So it's yeah, right into that. Think of all stakeholders. Marketing is thought of as customer base, but it really needs to incorporate, into the whole business and intuition. You know, we've got, I mean, the questions are popping up. I think they're great. One of them's kind of incorporated, I think, you know, this idea transformation, right, overall. You know, talk a lot about, you know, Samsung and its transformation, innovation, how you were a part of that, and then also how you're thinking about it for your department now. What's been happening in the last decade, and how have you been attending, and what do people need to be thinking about?
Yeah, okay, there's a couple of things there. So first of all, innovation is core to our DNA. You know, if you think about, our mission is to help people live their best life and defy barriers so that they can do whatever they want to do. So we're obsessed by never been done before. So we literally, when we write our action plans, we're like, okay, what is new, what's an improvement, and what stays the same? And we're really critical of this, because we realize that if we're going to help our consumers live the life that they want to live, if we want to make the world a better place, we owe it to the world to bring innovation. So that's really kind of like a fundamental for us. And, you know, I created a bit of a formulaic approach. I'll call it a framework. I created a framework based on best practices that I had seen. And I drew what I thought could be good for Samsung. And this whole aspect of most strategists and most corporate, I mean, I've worked with a lot, right? I've worked with a lot of corporate strategists. They'll come in and they talk to you just about industry, and they'll talk to you just about the economic outlook a little bit, but more about the industry, which I think just regurgitates same old, same old. What we did is actually we included the consumer, because I was a marketeer at heart. There's where there lies what the POD was for us, so that we could transform our business. I don't know, like we nearly hit our target. You know, I remember saying doubling our revenue. We're not far off that, right? In a short period of time. And it really was the unlock of, we understood all the trends that everyone was kind of predicting. Now, let's just say there was 100 trends. I'll just pick this up. We charted to see which ones were overlapping with each other. And we kind of said, okay, probably more likely that these are going to be more true. If there are 20 sources colliding on the same thing, you can probably say it's going to happen, right? So anyway, we kind of did that. We had our economic outlook. And obviously, we had predicted a recession, by the way. We didn't know it would be a pandemic-driven recession, but cyclic, we knew there was going to be a recession. And we could see how our consumers, particularly the millennials, were getting into certain spaces. That allowed us to create playbooks. That was this stop, start, continue type playbook with very ambitious targets. And then literally looked at our targets, we looked at our strategies and action plans and said, are you aggressive enough to hit that aggressive target? No, you're not. Let's go back to the drawing board. So that's a little bit of how we do it, right? In the past, right? But if I look forward looking of what's to come, there's so much in the space that we're excited about. And I'll talk it from a marketing angle, less commercial. It is commercial. Listen, AI and metaverse is what's keeping me up at night, not through fear, but through absolute excitement. I am so excited that I have a meatpacking showroom, but you need to live in New York or go to New York to go and see it. Can you imagine what it'll be like when I can put that in the pocket of every kid so they can experience Samsung, the brand, in a world that they can pick their avatar, they can explore how they feel. And Samsung has so much to offer that we can take them through a journey of what we're doing in sustainability. You know, we can do customization in a metaverse. your AI could talk to other AI and help you make purchasing decisions without you even there. I don't know. I'm pretty excited about the future. So that's what I'm working really hard on right now with my organization as we are ramping up to CS in January.
Right.
That's the big industry event for us where we'll unveil a lot of innovation. And we're running fast because there's a lot that we anticipate with the new norm, return to office, hybrid, new consumer trends that will take place in 2022. Never mind the next 5-10 years. Never mind. There's a lot going to happen next year, I would say even.
Yeah, where this pace of change that I mentioned at the beginning of everything, right, that we're going through. And I think there's sort of a little, I think a bit out, it's like punctuated equilibrium. There's some things that start and it's actually not, revolutionary change, or it's like small steps every year. And then every now and again, something happens and you get this ramp up within 5 to 10 years. And it's interesting. There's been questions too, and you've mentioned it a few times, Michelle, and around sustainability. Can you talk a little bit about Samsung's goals in that area? What the objectives and key results that you guys hope to achieve on that?
I mean, sustainability in the climate crisis at a personal level, personal mission. I'm sure we all share this. These marketeers, we have an empathy for the world in a different way than most people do, which is wonderful. It's why I love working in marketing. We see it as one of our greatest responsibilities, is really to protect the planet for future generations, my children, your children, our grandchildren. And Gen Z, millennials, they're speaking up saying, you have a responsibility to help us do this. So we take it seriously. And by the way, we've not just started. We were doing sustainability way back 1970s. It's amazing, right? We launched, what was it called? The Econo TV, where it allowed consumers to save up to 20% on their power consumption. Because remember, there was the oil crisis in the 70s, and it was very important then. So actually, since the 70s, we've been working on sustainability. And it comes like, of course, we build products, we make products, we have facilities. So when it comes to actually building a product, like I've got my phone here, got my TVs around me, I've got my monitor here. We have an 8-point circular process, which really focuses us on all the parts of the value chain, supply chain, where we can make smart choices, really. Like example is where do you source sustainable materials? Are you using recyclable materials? Are you using renewable energy? All that stuff's really important, right through to your packaging, all of that. Then your facilities, are you using renewable energy? And so for us, I think it's like for the US for sure, Europe and China, we're 100% renewable energy in all our facilities and offices. And so we're making all of these efforts because when you're such a large company like Samsung, we have a big impact and we can partner with consumers. So I literally just actually created a campaign in sustainability. Everyday change is meaningful impact. And that was built on a bunch of research that I did with young Gen Zers. And we were realizing actually, it's all the small things that we do that all add up. So we're very excited about this new campaign. It's been into market and it's going to naturally evolve as we do even more in sustainability.
It's interesting, aligned with just something in the news right now, John Doerr, who's, Kleiner Perkins chairman, right, who's been passionate about that. He just wrote a book where he says his book is like, it needs to be both, right? He's like, the small changes are never going to get us there. So just interesting for those in the audience, John Doerr, D-O-E-R-R, you might want to look. I just blanked on the name of the book. But it's sort of using this objectives and key results strategy development that they built. And he did, massive work with interviewing all sorts of climate activists and scientists and engineers and crafting kind of a global look at, all the big changes we need to go through with all the small changes. And, Samsung's a part of that with how you use energy. It's great to hear about all those things. So one of the other things we were talking about is, this connection between brand and consumers, technology, AI, all those kind of things. Maybe you can pick it both. There were a couple of questions on, hey, can you follow up about the AI focus group? So a little of that, like how is marketing using AI and or other technologies, but also the interconnectivity you were talking about was sort of, the big future metaverse at some point, of which we are very small steps into. But that idea of connectivity, right? Samsung, bought SmartThings, Internet of Things one of the leading Internet of Things company to incorporate that. You guys have lots of devices that are becoming more interconnected,
Yeah.
the first Internet of Things fridge and those kind of things. So talk about those relationships both there and, both product and
a lot of questions in there,
marketing.
Matthew. Let me try and unpack it a little bit. Let's start with connectivity, right? So for those who don't really use it, maybe it's because you're on a number of brands, but Samsung has an open ecosystem, right? So the concept is you can do more with less. That's essentially it, right? So I might have Netflix on my phone, and also I'm like, oh, that's great, and I just beam it up to my TV, and my kids are watching my TV, and I can still use my phone and it doesn't interrupt it. But it's that kind of simple way of like, okay, I've got an exercise program on my phone and it's up on my TV, which I regularly do with Kinergy, by the way. So it's fabulous for me in terms of that. But I think connectivity, really think of the heart and soul of it. We want to make the world a better place. We want to help consumers live the life that they've always dreamt that they want to have. And it really is like, if it's fitness, if it's wellness, if it's life hacks, productivity, if it's gaming, basically it should be just a quick swipe and you can connect everything together, and we can work with other brands. So for me, connectivity is probably a critical point of difference for Samsung versus other brands. And that's really important as marketeers. You got to know your PODs, right? Point of parties and your point of difference, you got to know that. For us, connectivity truly is that. There are other brands that are closed ecosystems. There's a constant debate about the blue bubble, the green bubble, all that kind of stuff. And inclusion is critical for us. And by the way, I touch on inclusion. I'm moving fast, Matthew, because I know we're running out of time. But if you want to be an innovative company, you cannot be innovative if you do not have inclusion and diversity because of thought leadership. And that is also representative of my consumers. I need my consumers to be able to access my brand. There's a digital divide today. Sustainability tells us even more about that. When there's a climate crisis, there's a forest fire, or a hurricane. It is the underserved communities that feel it the most. Sorry, I might sound like an activist here. I'm very passionate about this. I'm in Puerto Rico today. My husband's Puerto Rican. Hurricane Maria was devastating for the island, and kids didn't go to school. There was no Wi-Fi. We know the floods in New York. We've all seen this. We've seen. I had people in my own team in the West Coast. Their houses were burnt down. Houses were burnt down. The children were in the car crying because their toys were gone. And so we have a responsibility to do something here. And it's the underserved communities that are hurt the hardest, because the climate crisis might be global, but the effects are local. And brands like Samsung definitely want to really make an impact there. AI, let me pivot a little bit to AI. Right, you've got AI in focus groups, and basically you've got your concepts, people are giving feedback, and you're able to take everything that's happening in the chat and also voice recognition and be able to segment it. Well, these type of consumers are given this type of feedback. And if you're going to pivot your concept to from A to B, you're likely to increase your purchase intent. I've oversimplified that, Matthew, right? Yeah. But that it does the work for you, so that you're not in the data crunching, you're in the creativity space. And that's where humans add the most value, right? Is on that side. What have I missed out of that question, Matthew? I think, have I covered it?
Yeah, I think you've basically tackled it from both product innovation. We've even got someone who gave a shout out to, like, my S21 went through the washing machine and still works. Yes. So right, yes. These little the transitions of the little things people need in these devices that Samsung and your competitors as well. You're all sort of trying to meet these needs that people have. In this case, it was the challenge of water and our now very expensive phones and things like this. Yeah. So I think that's great. We've got obviously future business and marketing leaders in the room at Columbia, as well as virtually here. Give us some advice to them on what does it take to sort of be a strong leader. A little marketing, little broad leadership kind of hints, lessons you learned.
Yeah, I think P&G and Samsung's taught me that you need extreme leadership and ownership. So there's a book called Extreme Ownership. Go and read it. But leadership is critical. And I can unpack leadership real quickly for you. It's really about having a vision, something that can be done in the future, engaging people towards that vision, making sure they can do it, and making sure it gets done. I've really oversimplified leadership. I know that, right? 4-point process, but it all starts with having a vision and dreaming big. I love my CEO, KS Choi, because he really dreams big and he aims high. There is just no doubt about where he's going. there's, I'll call it extreme self-care, Matthew. I think if you want to be one of the most fabulous leaders and you want to bring your best self to the table, you have to look after yourself so you can look after others. People are like, huh? You know, like, well, I thought it was more about being able to present well. I think really, if you're going to have empathy and you're going to be able to pivot in difficult moments, you got to be really be able to have your neurons connecting, and you got to be very, very, very well balanced. And you can only do that through extreme self-care. I think positive grit is something that's critical. Bear in mind, I grew up in a barrio. I grew up in social housing. I had a childhood where it was just full of adversity, which I look back and I think was the greatest gift that God gave me. Because now you can hit me with anything. And quite frankly, I just get back up. It doesn't bother me. The leaders of the future need resilience in abundance. And by the way, there's a whole lot. I could talk to you again an hour for about resilience, but I really think that that makes all the difference. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else, like from a marketing viewpoint, that I haven't covered. No, I think that would be it, really.
That's great. What about just, early career, right? What, like, these folks, right, our students who are in their 20s, I'm sure some of the people virtually, right? What about that initial progression? Now, these are folks, many of them getting an MBA from Columbia. They are, sharp, have some advantages, obviously, as they go into the business environment.
I have a few people on my team, so sharp, right? So sharp. My friends used to joke and laugh at me. I used to always think about the 5, 10-year and 15-year plan. I had a vision for my own career, and I literally reverse engineered it, and I worked backwards, and I thought, right, this is what I need to get there. And I tried to figure out what was the skills and experience required to get there. And so, like, for instance, I'm a CMO today. Maybe I want to be a CEO tomorrow. So what are the skills I need to get there? I'll just give you the example of me. Well, I maybe need more financial experience, or maybe I need more, I don't know, supply chain experience. And maybe I need it in a certain region, a certain country. So reverse engineer, be fearless. Do not be afraid to take the assignment in a country that you can't speak the language. I've moved around, lived in many countries. Today, I live in Puerto Rico. I fly to New York for 3 days a week, and I get back on the plane back to Puerto Rico. I'm living the life I want to live on my own terms, having the best career I've ever had. I couldn't imagine I'd be sitting in this chair. So that was through making fearless choices, because other people would say, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't live 4 hours away from your office. Yes, you can. And you can do anything. Anything is possible. So that whole fearless reverse engineering and being hungry and trying new things and being very strategic about the assignments you take. Very strategic. They have to be building blocks for that ultimate vision.
That's great. Maybe we'll wrap up with a question around sort of your note of self-care as a leader. There's other questions about employees. You mentioned that's one of your roles.
Yes.
Maybe a little bit, this last minute, essentially, I have 2 quick, maybe like hot seat, couple of questions for you, but but just a little bit about, right, managing the employee experience. Yes. How is self-care? How are you thinking about that for your team and Samsung and hybrid workforce? Just a snippet.
Very good point, right? So you need to walk the talk. That's the first thing as the leader. So I don't send emails late at night. I don't work at weekends. And of course, there's always issues, and maybe I will have to, but in general, I literally turn off. So if you don't get an email from me, you're not going to feel compelled to work the weekend, are you? Because I'm walking the talk. That means sometimes tough choices for me. That means sometimes I might need to delay a deadline, because I believe in the power of my people when they're really open to the world. Marketeers, you need to be inspired from the world you're living in. You need to be able to have time to watch Netflix, to see pop culture, to go to a concert, to go to the latest bar, to see the latest influencer. You can't be heads down. As a marketer, you cannot be. And so really walking the talk there, I created little rules that there's no late night emailing, there's no meetings after a certain time, I created those rules. And I really do try and go to my leaders and say, are you making people work at lunchtime breaks? Oh, by the way, that's another rule. You must have a 1-hour break at lunchtime. And so then another thing as well, like I'm a big advocate of the 5 a.m. club. So I wake up at 4:45 every morning, meditate, journal, and read. And I read about 3 or 4 books, a little bit. And I actually bring some of those learnings to my team meetings. oh, I was reading this in Art of War. Oh, I was reading this in Ryan Holiday's latest book, or Brené Brown. And I actively do that. And I think it's the only way to really walk the talk. I mentor a lot of people as well to make sure I'm catching people that are hurting right now. People are hurting because they're not in the office. Yeah, we all want hybrid. And of course, if we can all work, if I could work from the beach every day, I'm sure it's great. But actually, it's not, because we kind of need people. We're human beings. And on the whole, we kind of need human interaction. I think January, when we return to the office and we've got this hybrid flexible working, we're all going to just be so happy to see each other for those 2 or 3 days and really enjoy each other. And you know, I say to my team, do you want me to decide those 3 days for you, or do you want to decide? And they wanted to decide. I'm like, great, go for it. Just go for it. Let's have fun. And that's my last point, Matthew. You are in marketing. It is the best place to work. If you're not having fun, there's something wrong. And that's it. So we decided that next year, 2022, is the year of fun for us.
Great. All right, 2 quick hot seat questions.
Hit me.
1-word answers, basically. I've got a guess on the first one. Mountains or beach?
Oh, beach.
Yeah, I mean, as you sit there in Puerto Rico, right? Instagram or TikTok?
Insta.
All right. And then super quick, one of your favorite gifts you've ever received. We don't have time to get into the story behind it, but
my favorite gift I ever received.
Oh,
that's a good one. That is a good one. A favorite gift. Oh, it was a ticket to the Monaco Grand Prix. That was out of this world. Yeah, love that. One of my favorite ones.
Michelle, a pleasure to have you with us. Let's give Michelle the virtual round of applause. Thank you so much for being here. There are other follow-up questions. I might tag you with them. Maybe we'll do a follow-up post on some of these other questions that have popped up. And I bid you adieu.